"Mom deserves better than you." They said it in unison, Jake and Austin, as they walked past me with slices of pepperoni pizza in their hands. The pizza I paid for. Not yelling, not joking, just speaking, flat, like they were reciting something that had been written down for them years ago, memorized behind closed doors. The kind of line you don't invent, you inherit. Jake didn't even look up from his phone. Austin didn't pause to see if it landed. They just dropped it there, like gum on a sidewalk. Sticky, ugly, permanent. I was sitting at the counter, still in my work shirt, oil-stained, sleeves rolled up, hands warm from the cardboard box I had carried inside. I had even swung by their favorite spot on the way home. Thin crust, extra sauce. That's how they like it. Leslie stood by the fridge, pouring herself a glass of Prosecco. Stemmed glass. Third one this week. She tilted the bottle without looking at me. She heard it. Every word. She didn't flinch. Didn't ask them to apologize. Didn't say my name. She just swirled the wine, tasted it, and walked out of the kitchen like the remark didn't require a response. And in that silence, everything became clear. It had been building. Of course it had. You don't get to this kind of betrayal overnight. It starts slow, muted, a look here, a sigh there, a joke that doesn't land, a chair left unpulled, dinner plates scraped into the trash without thanks. You tell yourself it's adolescence, growing pains. You tell yourself they'll grow out of it. But then one day they don't. And the woman you love, the woman you married, hears your name dragged through the dirt in your own home, and she just keeps sipping wine. So I stood up. No words, no tantrum. I walked to the bedroom, booted up the laptop, and booked her a room at the Harbor View. Waterfront, king suite, room service, all-inclusive, under her name, not mine. One adult, no guests. Then I grabbed a pen and wrote the kind of note you leave when you're done explaining yourself. Dinner's paid for. So is the weekend. Enjoy. I'm gone. I taped it to the fridge, right under the magnet that held up Austin Science Award, an award I printed and laminated for him when the school only emailed it. I didn't even bother to take my jacket. Just my wallet, my car keys, and the silence that had finally made itself louder than words. The food sat untouched on the table for a long while. I watched from the driveway. Through the blinds, I could see the flicker of blue light off their phones. Jake laughed at something on his screen. Austin swiped. Leslie refilled her glass. No one read the note for over an hour. My name is Andrew. I'm 46. 5 years ago, I moved to Atlanta to build something. Something different. Leslie was a widow. Her husband had died in a car crash on a foggy road in North Georgia. The boys were young back then, Austin barely out of kindergarten. I remember thinking this will be hard, but worth it. I never came in trying to replace anyone. I never used the word dad. Not once. I was just there, present. A steady figure when everything else in their lives was shifting. I worked at an auto shop downtown, bought a used pickup, rented a house with enough bedrooms for everyone, painted the walls myself, hung shelves, built bunk beds. I brought structure, quiet, consistency. I bought them bikes, paid for helmets, camps, allergy meds, put them on my health insurance because Leslie's policy wouldn't cover them anymore. I was there when Jake broke his wrist at the skate park. I carried him to the ER myself. Waited 5 hours in that hard plastic chair while Leslie cried in the car. They never said thank you, but I told myself it was normal. Kids don't always understand. Love looks different in boys that age. They show it in quiet ways. A shrug, a joke, a question about your day. That's what I thought. But the truth? They didn't see me. Not really. They saw help. A warm body to lift, drive, fix, sign checks. A man who paid for their comfort but didn't exist beyond it. And Leslie? She saw me through them. She mirrored their treatment of me like it was safer than taking a side. If they rolled their eyes, so did she. If they pushed back, she let them. The cracks started years ago. Jake once told me I didn't know how to be a parent, because his dad wouldn't have done it that way. I asked, "What way?" He shrugged. "Better." Austin once said I was just a mechanic. when I asked him to help clean the garage, and Leslie laughed, actually laughed, said, "He doesn't mean it like that." But he did. They all did. Every insult, every rolled eye, every act of defiance was deliberate, earned, planned, and I absorbed all of it because I believed it would balance out. Someday. But it didn't. I kept showing up, paying, driving, providing, and every year I slipped further into the background. The only time they noticed me was when something didn't work. Internet down? I fixed it. Water heater leaking? I handled it. Wi-Fi slow during game night? Andrew, can you reset the router? That was my name. Not Dad. Not even stepdad. Just Andrew, a live-in service provider. And the night they walked past me, holding pizza I bought, in a house I paid for, with mouths full of smug certainty, and told me Leslie deserved better? I believed them. She did deserve better. Better than a man she could quietly throw under the bus in front of her sons. Better than a man who was good enough to bankroll their lives, but not enough to defend in a room full of children. So I gave her that. I gave her silence. I gave her distance. I gave her the opportunity to build something with them, without me in the picture to muddy the waters. Because it had never really been about building a life with me. Not for her. Not for them. It had always been about making their old life livable again, with someone willing to carry the weight their father left behind. I wasn't a partner. I was a replacement part. And now I was worn out. So I walked. Not out of rage. Out of clarity. The house didn't blow up. No slammed doors. No final arguments. I drove down the hill, past the same corner store where I used to buy Gatorades for their soccer games. Past the park where we tried, once, to have a picnic before they complained the whole time. Past the diner where Leslie and I had our first real date. The car was quiet. I didn't turn on the radio. Didn't check my phone. Didn't look back. There are moments in life when the noise finally stops. Not because the chaos ends, but because you do. You stop explaining. Stop defending. Stop trying. You leave the keys on the counter. You turn the handle. You close the door behind you. And it's not dramatic. It's just honest. Because at some point, being invisible in a house you paid for is worse than being alone in one you don't. And that's where the real story begins. The morning after I left, I expected outrage. Accusations. At least a phone call. Instead, I got nothing. No messages. No missed calls. Just silence. They didn't notice until the lights didn't work. Until the Wi-Fi shut off halfway through a game. Until the thermostat blinked, offline. That's when the text started. "Andrew, the internet's not working. Can you fix the heat? It's freezing. Did you forget to pay the electric bill?" No question of where I was. No apology. No recognition. Just instructions, same as always. But I wasn't there to follow them anymore. By then, I was already 3 days into the lease on a 2-bedroom apartment above the auto shop. Small. Clean. My name on the lease, nobody else's. I brought only the essentials. Documents, a bag of clothes, my toolbox, and one framed photo of me and Leslie from the early days. Back when I thought shared smiles meant shared values. I left the frame in a drawer. The place came with a balcony. I'd stand out there in the mornings with coffee in hand, listening to the highway hum like a machine that never needed rest. It was peaceful in that bleak kind of way, like silence after surgery. You feel the absence of pain before you feel anything like healing. Meanwhile, back at the house. My house. The consequences I'd always buffered finally surfaced. Leslie hadn't realized how much I covered. She never looked at the bills. Never asked. I handled everything because I thought that's what love looked like, quiet labor. She didn't know I bundled the utilities, prepaid the internet 6 months at a time, auto-drafted the car insurance from my personal checking account. She didn't know the health insurance was tied to my job, or that the streaming services were logged into accounts under my name. It was never because I wanted control. It was because I thought being dependable mattered. Turns out it just made me easier to forget. When the power shut off, she called the electric company. They told her the account holder had terminated service. She asked who the account holder was. They gave her my name. She called once after that. I didn't answer. I let the voicemail play out. Andrew, what the hell is going on? The boys are cold. The fridge isn't working. We're not even getting water pressure. You can't just vanish like this. Call me back. I didn't. Instead, I forwarded the confirmation emails from the cancellation notices to her inbox. Just the subject lines. Just the proof. I never added a word. That was the beginning. The next day, Jake texted. Seriously? No heat? Grow up. Then Austin. You abandoned us. You're pathetic. I didn't respond, because this wasn't abandonment. This was clarity. Let me walk you through the days leading up to it. Maybe then you'll understand why I didn't just leave. I unplugged. Leslie had started going to yoga 4 times a week. Morning classes. She said it was the only time she had for herself. I encouraged it. I thought, let her breathe. Let her heal. But healing wasn't what she was chasing. It was distance. She stopped waking up when I left for work. She stopped asking about my day. She stopped saying goodnight. The boys followed suit. Jake got home from school, dropped his bag by the stairs, disappeared into his room. Austin did the same. They only emerged for food or to argue. The house had become a circuit board of separate silences. Lights flickered on and off as people moved through it without seeing each other. I still made dinner. Not because anyone asked, but because I believed in effort. I'd bring groceries home, cook enough for everyone, set the table. And they'd come down, eventually earphones in, faces glued to phones. They never said thank you. One night, 2 weeks before I left, I called them down to eat. I had worked 12 hours that day. My hands were cracked from coolant. My back ached from lifting engines. But I grilled chicken, steamed rice, made a salad. Austin walked in, looked at the table and said, "Can I finish my round first?" Jake walked past me and said, "You're not our dad." Then he sat down and started eating without another word. I looked at Leslie. She didn't even lift her head. She sipped her wine. White this time. The good bottle. The one I bought her for our anniversary. And that silence, that cold, brittle silence, was louder than anything I'd ever heard. No one defended me. No one said, "Don't talk to him like that." No one said, "He made this." I realized in that moment that I wasn't failing at fatherhood. I was being erased from the role entirely. I wasn't a parent. I was a placeholder, a silent wallet, a man-shaped tool with a pulse. And that night, while they ate the food I cooked and argued over who got the last drumstick, I made a decision. Not to fight, not to explain, just to stop. Because explanations don't matter to people who've already made up their minds. So I planned. I copied all my documents onto a flash drive, canceled my subscriptions, closed shared accounts, moved my paycheck deposit to a new bank, took my name off the lease. I left the heating bill unpaid. It would auto-shut off within 5 days. I switched their phones to their own plan. They didn't notice until the data stopped working. I let their insurance lapse. It wasn't malicious, it was logistical. If they weren't mine, then they weren't covered. Jake sent another message. Real mature. We needed you, and you bailed. Needed me, not missed me, not understood me, just needed. Like a tool, like a machine that stopped doing its job. Leslie emailed the school, apparently. Tried to update the emergency contact forms. They rejected her. She wasn't the primary. I was, or had been. She called again. Left another voicemail. You're hurting everyone. You've made your point. Come home. But I wasn't making a point. I was finally living according to theirs. They'd made it clear I wasn't family. Not really. So I let them live with that clarity. They got what they wanted. Life without the man they didn't respect. And for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't putting food into the mouths of people who mocked me. I wasn't paying for streaming services for kids who called me a joke. I wasn't coming home to silence and condescension. I was alone, yes, but I was free. Free from the tightrope of stepfatherhood. From the thankless grind. From the humiliation of being tolerated rather than embraced. And I slept better than I had in years. One night, I dreamt I was sitting at the dinner table again. Same chairs, same plates, same cheap wine in a glass that used to mean something. But this time, no one else was there. And I woke up smiling. I didn't slam a single door. I didn't scream. I didn't leave a trail of broken dishes behind me. That would have given them too much. Drama is fuel for the kind of people who rewrite history as soon as they're left alone with it. So I gave them the one thing they couldn't twist into a story. Silence. Leslie got the hotel suite. I tracked the charge when it hit my card. She checked in around 6:40 p.m. the night I left. Waterfront view. The suite with the corner balcony. That room was $312 a night, not including wine or valet. She stayed 2 nights. No messages. No thank you. The note I taped to the fridge remained untouched for 48 hours. I know because I checked. I drove past the house every night, parked across the street, lights off. Same blinds. Same fridge light casting that familiar yellow glow through the kitchen. On the 3rd night, I watched Jake read it. He stood there in his hoodie, one hand on the open fridge, the other holding his phone. He scanned the note, then shut the fridge door like nothing was there. He didn't laugh. He didn't flinch. He just walked away. That told me everything. They didn't think I would stay gone. They thought I was bluffing, that this was some half-hearted protest, some guilt trip that would end with me crawling back through the door, groceries in one hand, a sorry look in the other. But I wasn't bluffing. I was finished. I'd spent 5 years buying a life for people who never intended to share it with me. Now I was done renting respect. The heat shut off first. Georgia winters don't get brutal, but they get sharp. Nights dip into the 30s. Enough to make hardwood floors sting your bare feet. Then the internet. No YouTube. No Twitch. No gaming. Then the food. I had closed the joint account Leslie used for groceries. Cancelled the delivery subscription. No more weekly boxes of pre-cut vegetables and marinated chicken. No more almond milk for Austin. No more frozen pizzas for Jake. I watched the silence bleed into their routines like mold spreading through a wall. On the 5th day, the texts came in a wave. From Leslie, "What are you doing? Andrew, you've made your point. The boys are scared. This isn't like you." She was right. It wasn't like me. But that's because the man she'd known wasn't real. He was manufactured, built, forged in sacrifice and fear, the fear of being alone again. From Jake, "Why would you do this to Mom? You're mad at us. Take it out on us. Don't drag her into it." As if she hadn't already chosen her role. Silence is a choice. A loud, definitive one. Every time they disrespected me and she said nothing, that was her answer. Every time she chuckled at their cruelty or changed the subject, that was her complicity. You can't stand in a burning house, refuse to scream, and then act surprised when the walls collapse. So I let them burn. I cut off the utilities in phases. I didn't want them to think it was an accident. I wanted them to feel the structure they'd lived in tremble and collapse, one brick at a time. Not out of revenge, out of truth. This was reality stripped of my effort. They wanted independence. They wanted freedom. They wanted to spit on the hands that fed them and still keep their mouths full. Now they could try. Jake texted again. "You betrayed the family." That line nearly made me laugh. What family? The one where I was a glorified ATM? The one where I paid for orthodontics and they rolled their eyes when I asked how school was going? They never saw me as family. I was a placeholder. When Leslie's husband died, the boys were young, 5 and 7. They barely remember him, but they speak of him like he was a king, a man of myth, the ghost in the hallway whose name always tasted better than mine. They called him Dad in reverent tones. They called me Andrew like it was an insult. They clung to a man who wasn't coming back. They honored his absence and mocked my presence. And Leslie? She let them. She said, "Give them time." For 5 years. Time turned into entitlement. Entitlement turned into resentment. And resentment became the script they followed, day after day. Jake once told me I didn't get a say in house rules. Said, "This isn't really your home." I was paying the mortgage at the time. Austin once asked, "Why do you even care what we do?" When I caught him sneaking out past curfew. I cared because I thought I was building something real. Turns out I was just building a bridge for them to walk across and spit on. So when they told me, flat out, that Leslie deserved better than me, I didn't argue. I agreed. She deserved better than a man who lived on his knees. Better than someone who begged teenagers for recognition. Better than someone who twisted himself into a stepfather when no one wanted a father at all. So I disappeared. Not in smoke. In silence. Not to teach a lesson. To end the charade. I watched them flounder. The boys started staying at their grandmother's house on the weekends. A cramped duplex on the east side. Leslie hated it there. Said it smelled like mildew and stale cigarettes. But the lights stayed on. The water worked. And their grandmother never asked them to earn respect. She just fed them. No questions. No expectations. A few weeks in, Leslie started selling things. The bike I bought her for her birthday, gone. The gas grill I installed by hand, listed online. The patio furniture, sold to a neighbor for half what I paid. She never reached out to tell me. I just saw the items vanish one by one whenever I drove past the house. I never stopped checking. Not because I wanted to go back, but because I wanted to see if they'd fill the vacuum. If someone would rise to meet the responsibilities I left behind. No one did. Because the truth is, independence was always an illusion. Jake talked big, but he couldn't cook a meal without using 4 apps and 2 tutorials. Austin thought mowing the lawn meant using the riding mower and leaving the edges undone. Leslie thought being a single parent was something you eased into, like yoga or grief. But you don't ease into the grind. You either carry the weight or you get crushed by it. And slowly, silently, they began to feel it. I never told them what I was doing. I just turned off the faucet. Not to watch them drown. To watch them discover that the water had always come from me. Leslie tried one last message. I'm sorry. I should have said something. But it was never about not loving you. You know that, right? I didn't respond. Because love without defense is betrayal. Love that allows disrespect is convenience. And I wasn't looking for a convenient life. I was looking for a family. What I got was a role, written by someone else, performed under someone else's roof, with someone else's name hanging over the mantel. So I wrote myself out of the story. No climax. No final confrontation. Just silence. That's what they gave me for 5 years. Now they could live in it. The first morning I didn't wake up to the sound of someone else's alarm was the first morning I realized I had been surviving, not living. For years, my day started with noise that wasn't mine. Slamming doors, arguing kids, Leslie yelling up the stairs that breakfast was ready, even when she hadn't made any. I'd wake before the sun, not to stretch, not to breathe, but to brace. I'd lie in bed for a few seconds, holding the ceiling in my eyes, trying to remember who I was outside of obligation. That version of me no longer exists. Now I wake up before the alarm just because I want to. I make coffee slowly. I let the kettle sing. I sit by the balcony. No blinds drawn. Nothing to hide from. The city wakes with a hum beneath me. The auto shop's early deliveries. The bark of tires over cold asphalt. The groan of metal shutters being lifted open. It's not peaceful in the traditional sense. But it's mine. And in that simple, quiet life, I've started doing something I'd nearly forgotten I enjoyed. I paint. Not landscapes. Not portraits. I paint what silence looks like. One canvas is just a black doorway in an empty hallway. Light spilling through a frame that leads nowhere. Another is a table set for 4, but every chair is facing away from it. I don't sell them. I don't show them. I just hang them on the wall of the second bedroom and let them sit. Let them judge me in ways my former family never could, with stillness, with patience. I don't wonder what they think of me. That would be like asking the fire what it thinks of the water that finally put it out. I've heard bits and pieces. Leslie sold the house. She moved into a rental closer to her mother. The boys are split. Jake's working part-time, taking night classes, trying to afford his own gas. Austin's quieter now, according to a mutual acquaintance. He stopped showing off in class. Doesn't talk about his dad much anymore. I never checked in. But people love to tell you things when they want to know if you've softened. I haven't. Softness is what made me stay too long. It's what had me apologizing for asking to be acknowledged, for wanting to be treated like a member of the home I built. I'm not bitter. That's what people assume, that men like me walk away steaming, vengeful, broken. But I didn't leave to punish. I left to survive, to preserve the last version of myself that hadn't yet been shaped by resentment. And funny thing is, I don't miss them. I miss the idea of them, the dream, the script, the version of family I clung to like a blueprint, even as the walls refused to be built. But I don't miss Jake's sarcasm. I don't miss Austin's quiet contempt. I don't miss Leslie's wine-soaked excuses or her apologies whispered after the damage was already done. The worst part isn't the memory. It's how long I lived in denial of it. People don't talk enough about quiet betrayal. Everyone understands violence, cheating, shouting. But what about neglect? What about being erased with smiles? What about showing up every day for a family that never decided you were part of them? That kind of betrayal doesn't bleed. It rots. And it rotted me for years. Now, my days are small, repetitive, free. Work, paint, cook, sleep. Sometimes I drive out to the edge of town where the trees still hold their shape and watch the wind move across them. There's a lake near there. I never brought the boys. We always had plans. Leslie always had errands. They never wanted the silence. It forced them to hear things they didn't want to understand, like how much of their life was handed to them by a man they never thanked. I used to dream of reconciliation, of Jake knocking on my door, of Austin calling from college, of Leslie showing up, older, changed, saying she saw it now, what I carried, what I gave. Now I don't dream of any of them, because you can't reconcile with ghosts. And that's all they are now. They haunt the corners of certain songs. The smell of cheap pizza. A text notification I still instinctively glance at before remembering no one worth hearing from uses that tone. One night, not long ago, I got a message from Leslie. First one in over a year. Short, blunt. Jake's graduating. Thought you'd want to know. That was it. No hello. No apology. No invitation. Just a passive update like I was a distant relative. Like I had never packed lunches, paid for shoes, sat through cold soccer games in the rain while she stayed warm in the car. I didn't answer, because I've realized something. Participation without acknowledgement is self-erasure. And I refuse to be erased again. She sent a second message a week later. He was disappointed you didn't reply. That one made me laugh. Really laugh. First real laugh in weeks. Disappointed. As if disappointment was something they ever spared me. As if I hadn't come home every night to a house full of people who made a sport of reminding me I didn't belong. No, I don't attend ceremonies for people who spent years dismantling me in small doses. Let his real father show up. Let him sit in the audience. Let him smile and wave. Let Jake learn how long a shadow disappointment can cast when it's earned. I haven't blocked them. That's the beauty of silence. It doesn't need to be loud to be final. It just needs to be consistent. And I've learned how to be consistent. Every time someone tells me I must miss them, I ask one question back. Do you miss the people who ignored your existence until they needed something from you? Do you miss being tolerated? Do you miss being used? I don't. I miss being a version of myself who didn't think love had to be bought. But that man's gone. I buried him in the back of that house with all the other things they let die. Kindness, effort, presence, care. I walk differently now. Not lighter, just clearer. Every step I take now is for me. Not for a thankless household. Not for boys who smirked and sneered. Not for a woman who wanted a partner when it was convenient and a scapegoat when it wasn't. Just me. And I'm enough. So here's the final question, the one I leave with you, whoever you are. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to walk away from a house that expected everything and gave nothing? Was I wrong to stop feeding a system built on silence and entitlement? Was I cruel to step out of the shadows and say, I won't carry this anymore? Would you have stayed? Would you?